Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday meeting of the BOCC. First item, if you want to join me in the pledge, we'll get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask Commissioner Mortensen for a review of the minutes with his new eyesight.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sure my eyesight will improve in time.
Yeah.
And other insights too. I did review the minutes of the activities last week, and I moved to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Any questions, corrections? I see. Not seeing any. We'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Also vote aye. Thank you. I'll run through the consent agenda here. Under agreements, contracts, bid awards, the first five are renewal of interlocal agreements with our local cities for records after hours. You can see we have Kelso, Klamath, Castle Rock, Woodland, and Longview through June 30th of this year. Item 6. This is a contract usage agreement with the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. When we're sent, this is updated from an initial, the last agreement was 2013 that we did. And so this is they've asked for an updated. This gives us availability to order from places that can offer a better cost. It just expands the availability to us of where we get our supplies. Contract extension with JL Stordahl and Sons to removal of dredge materials at Cook Ferry Road. They pay us, they're taking a minimum of 150,000 cubic yards. They pay us $2.06 per cubic yard. They use those materials. They have to mix it with some other material and then they can use it for some of their projects. Per RCW, the funds generated from this actually go into our park system. Item 8, amendment number 1 agreement with Aeta Architects, previously Collins Architect Group. This is an on-call engineering and architectural consultation services that we utilize. This amendment basically affects a name change. They're now Aeta, hope that's correct, when it was previously Collins, and extends the agreement to April of 2025. This is a contract we have on an as-needed basis. As I mentioned, it's up to $100,000 over this past, I think it was a year. We've used them twice. One, when we had a leak at the Hall of Justice, we had them look at the foundational over that just to make sure we were good. And one other time we used them. So over the past time, we can go up to 100,000. We've spent 17,000. Utilize them over the past period of time. Item 9 is an interlocal agreement with the Consolidated Diking Improvement District number 1. We do interlocal agreements. What that gives us the ability to do is if they need some service from us, then we can help them. We can't, they just can't call us on the phone and say we need this and we do it. Government entities have to have this interlocal agreement. Surprisingly, we have interlocal agreements with most of the diking districts. This is the first time with district number 1. So it's not uncommon. What I understand is I think they want us to do some signs for us, for them. Board correspondence. We have a letter to Ryan Searcy appointing him to the Veterans Advisory Board for your term that expires October of 2028. That's the consent agenda. Any questions on that?
On the ILAs with the cities,
Mhm.
halfway through the year, I mean, we're almost there. Is there an implication that these will not be continued or should not be continued? Anything like that?
I think their plan is to continue. When I looked through them, I think I don't know if any of the sheriffs or anybody's on, but it looked to me like they were waiting for contracts to be settled before they renewed for the longer term to know what the new rate was. That's what it appeared to me.
So this is just a bridge.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Originally, the law enforcement records for all the law enforcement agencies in the county came to the county. We operated the law enforcement records system. Well, with the increasing importance of public document requests, ownership of the documents became an issue. And the local government said, we need to have control over the documents our police generate. And they agreed to start taking care of their own records, except these agencies don't have 24-hour offices, and our law enforcement does. So after hours, the records come to us temporarily and then get sent back out.
Yeah.
So that's what's outlined in that agreement.
I see the sheriff's on.
Oh,
You
he'll
want to correct me if I interpreted that wrong or?
No, that's correct. This is just a temporary stopgap contracts pending ratification of a new contract with the records clerk. So you should be seeing that here in the next week or two. Once that's settled, then we're going to have to go back retroactively with the cities and get increased payments from them for the new cost, and then enter into new agreements with them based on the new cost of the clerk's time and the new rate of pay. So that's, yeah, this is just a temporary fix.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on?
Yeah, as long as Brad's there. Brad, is this, do we get paid per access or just a straight monthly fee type thing?
No, it's there's a formula based on population of the cities, and we split the after hours. We have those up after hours, evenings, weekends. It's about 6,000 hours per year, and based on that, we split that proportionally with all the cities to cover
Yeah.
that time frame.
Every city here is different. Castle Rock is like a little over 6,600, Longview is 157.
Yeah,
They're
it's
all
directly tied to
different.
population.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Pleasure.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve today's consent agenda as presented by staff.
We have a motion to approve today's consent agenda. Last chance for questions. Not seeing any. I will call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. Two motion items today, both Health and Human Services. While she's making her way up, I forgot to mention, we do have Board of Health today at 10 a.m. So just be aware, we have Board of Health coming in today.
Hey, good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. Two items on the agenda today. The first is a contract or a grant agreement with Community House on Broadway. This is an agreement to support construction of their youth shelter project. It's an up to $2 million award. And this particular funding, I believe, is going to go towards renovating the area of the building that was the Carriage Restaurant area that will be transformed into a cafeteria setting for the youth staying at the youth shelter to access food and prepare food. They anticipate up to 24 beds, 12 for female, 12 for males, youth under the age of 18. And will also be transformed into a youth work site where they could get some work experience and and use it that way as well. So it's an up to $2 million, as I mentioned. It's still operates off of a cost reimbursement model where they expend the funds and submit reimbursement to the county for this project.
And the other project is with Lower Columbia CAP, and it's another housing project, isn't it?
Yes, the other project is with Lower Columbia CAP. This is up to $695,000 for construction of affordable housing units. This is for the project you hear it talked about as the Catlin and Maine project. That is a sort of community center on the bottom, apartment units on the top. So this would, that grant agreement would be to support construction, some of the costs of the construction of those units.
So the two approvals here kind of complete the major affordable housing initiatives that this board has taken in the last year. With a grant of a similar size, about $700,000, going to Campus Towers for their improvements on Olympia Way, and then Sunrise Village. We had roughly the same amount of money going towards their construction. They had groundbreaking just last week, and pretty exciting to see where that happens. And then these are the two additional ones that pretty much takes care of an awful lot of the document recording fees that we had built up over the years.
It does. It does, yes. There was a question, just to follow up, there was a question yesterday about language in the contracts about it, length of time to use the facility for this purpose. We don't currently have language like that in these contracts, but if the board would like to add that language, we could certainly do that.
As I said yesterday, that always gives me a little comfort because I don't like to see them. Excuse me, when we looked at these and approved these things, we had a thing in mind that we were trying to accomplish, and I don't like to see them morph out of that. That's Commissioner Weber's word. I stole it, but
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, if we want to go back and add something like that, we can.
All of these projects involve state funds. Does the state contract have a language with a number of years?
They typically do. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can't say for certain how long or if this particular one does, but I do believe the state contracts and as well as federal funds usually have that intended use duration included.
I'm just wondering if that would be satisfactory, to whatever's consistent with what the state already requires.
yeah, I was going to say maybe just mimic what
That language.
they have.
Okay.
So I'll just repeat what I've said before ad nauseum. Document recording fees are supposedly to tackle affordable housing. And this program doesn't do that, so I've voted against that before, and I will do so again.
Any other questions? Not seeing, Ron?
Just to reiterate again, we're allocating monies and I'm supporting you in the effort that we are making progress on affordable housing and housing rather than dishing out money and expecting some progress in our metrics against these efforts or in concert with these efforts. So just a concept, we see money, but we don't see the metrics of results.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ron. I said, I think yesterday when we were looking at this, success isn't getting them built. That's not success. That's just a step. Success is seeing that it does what you want it to do. Like, one metric I guess I would look at, if these kids are having trouble, but they're still in school, what's the graduation rate? Are they coming through, or is it actually making a difference? Just having the building isn't success. I agree.
For the record, I'm Mike Kaiser and reside at 615 Monahan Road, Castle Rock, Washington. I have a couple of comments here. First of all, I would like to comment that at least Commissioner Mortensen is consistent. And my second comment would be, what really is affordable housing? I mean, I've seen Lewis counties, and I'm sure other people say it's supposed to be 30% of your income goes towards housing. And with the way housing is today and interest rates, whatever else you want to throw into the pile and try to figure out, you know, what on earth would be affordable housing, whether you're a low income or a high income person. And second of all, between the $2 million of community house and the almost $700,000 of cap, it looks to me like we're throwing $2.7 million into our own version of Camp Alabama, just it's uptown now. And if that's a good deal or a bad deal, I don't know, and I wouldn't pretend to know, but it's an awful lot of money for 24 beds. I mean, that's $100,000 a bed. And you should be able to buy a house for $100,000 a bed. I don't know if you can do that or not. And I know everything costs money, and this cap thing is kind of loosey-goosey. And $700,000, if they want to have something business type on the bottom floor and apartments upstairs, $700,000 isn't going to get you anywhere except maybe through the permitting process, the cost of building permits. But I mean, I got to applaud your effort because you got to try and do something. I have no idea what that something is, but at least Commissioner Mortensen's been consistent. I'll give him credit for that. Thank you for your time.
If I might, the issue of defining affordable housing is one that'll vex everybody. But if you assume without defining what affordable is, that there is not enough housing, then the answer is build more housing. And therein, one thing we could do is, I'm not sure it's what the legal ramifications are, but we've been told frequently that the building and planning fees are enough to really drive prices up. So I had advocated a program that says we will reimburse your fees after you've built and there's occupancy and you can fit whatever other criteria you might want on that. Why I like that, it ties the money that you're spending to producing more housing. At some point, we will have enough housing, but we will never have enough housing if we spend the money like this. Now, just for completeness, this 2 million adds up to another 5 million that was issued by the state. You do all the arithmetic of what they said, and that's $320 some odd thousand per door. And the carrying cost, as estimated by the organization itself, is $56,000 a year per door. Not very many of us make $56,000 a year.
If I might add in closing there, you're out of having enough housing sometime. I hope you don't think that's get rid of the old people. And by definition on that, I'll say all of us that are over 65. And I think I'm looking at 3 people and I'll throw myself in the mix of being there. I hope nobody's checking us out very quickly.
No, actually, as a matter of fact, this board has given Campus Towers a chunk of money, and they're 55 and over. I don't know about 65, but anyhow, obviously it's just a tease there, but we are very sympathetic for people who really have ended up in some sort of a box of some kind, and
So
Yeah.
one of our goals, of course, is to address the supply of housing. I think you address any kind of a shortage by increasing the number of houses that were built. And we do that in a number of different ways. Of course, we've talked about grants where we have the money to address affordable housing. And it is a bit of a challenge because it is a market and you have to build something that people are interested in buying. About 2 years ago, we made a land use planning decision to allow a brand new cottage with 80, a brand new development with 80 cottages, smaller than the minimum lot size that we normally expect. And we thought that would certainly address affordable housing, much smaller, new construction, it'd be pretty attractive. So far, the developer, I don't think has even turned a shovel yet on that project. It's out on Pennsylvania Way. They can't get the funding because it's apparently not marketable. Now, it's a lot more complicated and we're not doing it, but it's interesting. We've tried a whole variety of strategies. We've also changed our building regulations to encourage accessory dwelling units to be added. That is converting the garages and letting people house more people on lots. So I think we have agreed there's no one size fits all, and we've tried a variety of housing, all the way from senior citizens with campus towers to the homeless youth. And I think it goes without saying that when you get government funded in just about anything, the costs and the expenses rise because there are, in the fine print, all kinds of rules and regulations that contractors have to follow that raise the costs. So it is interesting. Try a variety of different programs, and apparently we still have a lack of affordable housing. So it's an ongoing project.
Along those lines, wasn't, what, maybe 2 years ago, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, where through the county, we doled out $9 million or more for rentals subsidies. And it turned out that that was on average, those who received rental subsidies got $860 a month. Now, if I'm a landlord, I don't have to compete with anybody because the state will come in and backfill. And so on the one hand, we're trying to do the right thing. On the other hand, we as part of the government are doing the wrong thing. Everybody knows the plight of the cost of a college education and that started when the government subsidized everything. I could go on, but you get the idea.
Yeah. This whole affordable, I've stated my piece on that before. The cost of a new home, about a quarter of it, and this has been through studies over several years, is government regulation. And until we get the stones to push back and get Olympia and the feds to stop doing all this nonsense regulation, we just had to adopt some codes, that new energy codes and new regulations that are going to put, I don't know, I've heard estimates $20,000 to $40,000 on a home. So you not only need volume out there, but you need to stop some of this insane regulation. Anyway, go ahead.
My name's Alan Brassfield. I'm on the board of directors for Community House. I'm their vice president. Arn, you are kind of correct. It's not exactly a direct feed into affordable housing, but housing will never be affordable. I've been a contractor for 30 years in Cowlitz County. Okay, housing prices are ridiculous. So all of us are actually living in unaffordable housing. I myself also. So why don't we create people who can actually live in unaffordable housing? I've been on the board of directors for Drug Abuse Prevention Center right before they merged with Cowlitz Family Health Center. We dealt with addiction. I myself have 27 years clean. So the reason I'm on the board is because I have literally dozens, if not hundreds of friends that have used the community house as a stable stepping stone to get recovery, buy houses, have jobs, and pay their taxes in our community, who are also living in unaffordable housing at the moment. So we did a study with DAPC. Gus Nolte was looking at trying to get a treatment center set up for youth. And there was a study done that said if you can cut a youth off in addiction and get them on the right track, you literally save the government between $500,000 and $1 million over their lifetime. Treatment centers, jails and institutions, psychiatric wards, all that kind of stuff that we can cut off by taking care of these kids and giving them a chance. So if the formula is right, if it's $500,000 to $1 million per youth, You only got to help about 6 youth. And we've justified that $2 million. And those are people that are paying taxes in our community. They're working jobs. They're, buying homes. They're doing all that kind of stuff. Plus the employment that the people will employ who need to make money to afford their unaffordable housing. There's a saying out there that we have the ability to cure everything that ails humanity. But if there's no profit in it, we won't take it on. So I hope that you look at, we got to think outside the box with the problem. And outside the boxes is cutting it off before it happens. And so helping these youth get on the right track is going to save us a huge amount of money down the road.
Yeah, I've heard that argument a lot. Are you familiar with this book?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you about compassion. I'm a recovering addict. The thing about community house is that we don't just give them a handout. They've got to help push the broke down car through the intersection. See, I've been at this a long time. A drug addict will get in the car and say, help me push the car, and push the brakes. Community house has a proven formula for getting the addict out of the car and help push his own doggone car.
I've been a past supporter of community house and community house as it used to be.
What do you
there's
mean
some-
as it used to be?
It could be a very long discussion, but let me not go there. Let me take a little bit of your thinking and say, we have what it really amounts to a logical engineering problem. In engineering, if you separate out the modules, and that's a pretty common thing, and that's why you can fix a lot of software because it's modularized. And we've got entanglements here. I'm saying that we cannot get a clear picture of what's going on. You've made some good theories, and I'm very fond of trying something if there is success to it. You've given some notion that if you take these 24 people and so forth, what you haven't done there is get enough history behind it. And what you haven't done there is talk about the cost of the money going in. What else could you do with that? And
What else could you do with it, Arn?
I gave
Where's
you an
the
example
solution?
earlier.
And it's not theories on my end. I've watched this for 27 years, my friend.
I'm quite a bit older
My-
than you. I'm quite a bit
That's
older.
fine. And you know why? You know why we're still stuck where we're at? Old ideas. Old ideas has got us stuck. We're dealing with new problems today.
Are you sure you looked at this book?
I've never looked at that book. I don't need to look at that book to tell you that what we're looking
Okay,
at
thank you.
doing,
You just answered my
what-
question.
what we're asking the county to do is to cut it off at the pass.
Again, you
Look
have
at the
to look at the
past.
numbers, and it's just not that there's an infinite source of money to do what you think will work.
You gotta
And
lay the foundation.
ignoring all of that, this is for affordable housing, and there is naturally a time constant in here, but when I think of affordable housing, I think of that as a problem today, not a welfare problem. It's a problem today about providing more housing. I don't even care to define what affordable is. I don't presume to tell you what you can spend, and hopefully we don't, as a government, decide what affordable is. But if we think there's a problem, let's do what we can to put more housing. For $8 million, how many houses can you actually build out there? And what would be the impact of that? I mean, I could go through lots of arguments.
Oh, and so could I. You and I could do it all day. The thing is don't these 24 youth have a right to have somewhere to live?
Maybe if their mom and dad had an affordable house, things would
No,
work
no.
better.
I doubt it. I doubt it. Because like I said, a lot of the drug addiction in this community is generational. It's the same names. You read the police blotter, same names. It's been, I've lived in this community 56 years. We're not gonna fix the problem with old thinking because it's a new problem. When I was growing up, people weren't homeless. There was none of that going on.
Well, the good news for you is that you will get to see it because two will vote for it and one will vote against it. So we'll just see how it works out.
We'll see how it works out. Thank you for your time.
Well, Ellen, thank you for the work that you do with Community House. You know, it is, we talk a lot about homeless services. It is the #1 provider of services for the homeless in this community. And that program has evolved over time. There has been some changes. I was on the city council when the original Broadway Hotel was converted into the homeless shelter, and they've had their ups and downs, and they've struggled to try to get the right match. And they at one time, they kind of arguably made the presence of homelessness even worse because they offered free meals to anybody who showed up, in addition to meals for their clients. And that did make the presence of homeless in downtown Longview much worse. Management changed. They put it into that and demanded clean and sober services as a very important step to the path forward. One of the interesting challenges is and what we've discovered during this entire struggle with homelessness is that there is a behavioral health element that has to be addressed if you try to eliminate homelessness for every individual. And the document recording fees, and we have a 1/10 of 1% behavioral health tax that provide resources to address behavioral health issues. And one of the things that we did about 10 years ago for Community House was to provide funding so that some of their staff could get the training necessary to gain access to Medicaid funding to do the treatment. And that eventually is what became Core Health, which is another stellar provider of those services. So, thank you for supporting those kinds of changes. And the other thing is, congratulations on your 27 years.
Thank you.
That's an incredible
Thank you.
achievement.
No, and that's our goal at Community House, is not just to shelter, it's just sheltering people and feeding them a meal doesn't really make their situation better. It's all about that holistic, spiritual, mental, all that kind of stuff, getting them mental health care, getting them their medications balanced if they're on medications, giving them a secure place to be, and making them self-sufficient. That's our goal. Our goal isn't to house anybody. Our goal is to set people to be self-sufficient, like it did for me. And it wasn't an easy road. If somebody would have just gave me things when I went to get clean in 1996, I would have took those things and continued to do what I was doing. But people stepped alongside and they held me accountable, and they helped me push the vehicle and taught me how to push the vehicle myself. And so
I did have one question about the youth services program. When we were first presented with that, there was a promise suggested that in addition to food preparation service job training, that the automotive center that's right next door might be able to offer automotive repair service job training as well. Is that still part of the plan?
I think that's still part of the plan.
Okay,
Yes,
thanks.
absolutely.
I think that job element is that new type of thinking with youth. That does make a difference, helping build those
Oh,
skills. So,
absolutely. And there again, you're making affordable housing by giving people a trade or giving them skills that they can go out and get a job and pay for their housing. I mean, it's all connected.
When I talk to employers around the community, and I represent the county on the Longview Coastal Chamber Board and the Economic Development Council, and in other activities, one of the things they say about the younger workers is their frustration that they don't have the kind of soft skills that make good employees. Work experience, showing up on time, being courteous, being responsible, in part because adolescents don't get part-time jobs anymore. It's very difficult to do that. And that perked my ears up when that job training was part of the deal for this youth development center. So we're hopeful. And again, as the chairman has mentioned, time will tell. We need to get the data that it actually is working the way that the expectation is.
Well, the thing is it's almost a test. It's almost a test because there's not a lot of places to get the data. They're not the youth shelter thing is totally new. The states got their eyes on us. We're under a microscope. They're wanting to see, because they're looking for solutions.
Yeah.
You know, Jay Ensley came down, he took a tour through our facility at the community house. He heard some of the things we were talking about with the youth shelter, and he was very excited. His wife calls about once a month to talk to our secretary. They made a connection and she's going, what's going on? What do you need? They're interested in what's going on down here because it's got success. And they're being yelled at daily. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So they're watching Cowlitz County to see what we're going to do. And then we could be the leader in the model of this. And I really think that it's going to work. If somebody would have got to me when I was a youth and maybe taught me some things, maybe I wouldn't have went the route I went for as long as I did. But, you know, thank you for your time.
Listening to the conversation, it just reminds me, you know, when we first started talking about this, we had schools telling us that they have these group of students, all the schools around that have a home life, that they have addicted parents or whatever, but they're trying to stay out of it and still coming to school. They're not living at home. Some are living in cars or couch surfing or whatever, and the schools are providing showers and doing things to try and keep them. And we heard stories of them working through and graduating, and that's what really tipped it for me. If it just turns into a drug rehab center, I'm going to be disappointed. And that's why I talk about, we don't want it to, I'm not interested in it morphing. These kids that are trying to get out of that, break that cycle and stay out of it, if they're already addicted and walking the streets and doing that, there's other programs for that. This wasn't ever what I saw that as, and it was never presented as that. So it's important to me that those contracts don't crab walk into something else.
I guess I want to say that I think locally, the community house is probably the best program going anywhere locally that I know of. I support community house. However, I also object to any organization, including community house, to make a blanket statement that says, we have a proven program that works. It kind of wants to indicate from them that they have no failures. They have 100% success rate. I would like to hear numbers. If they're going to make statements of, we have a proven program that works, I'd like to hear it say for 40% or 50% or 9 out of 10. I don't care what the numbers are, but they don't have 100% success rate. So they also have a failure rate that's in there. I'm not trying to pick on community house or anybody else, but the facts are there isn't a proven program that works for everybody and everything. And I appreciate the fact that in this case, as the gentleman said, if it's a brand new program, we're hanging our pin the tail on the donkey of wishes because there is no proof. The proof is after you get down the road a ways to find out what your success and your failure rate is. So it's a noble cause to go forward with this and to do something with it. Okay, great. I would like to know of this $2.7 million that we're looking at here, how long did it take to accumulate those funds that you have now to spend? How long did it take to accumulate that in your coffers, and how long is it going to take to replace it?
Well, it depends on real estate activity. I think when real estate activity is going well, I don't know how much it was growing per year. It was pretty
Yeah.
quick. It was over $1 million a year.
It actually went up quite a bit during the pandemic. And so it accumulated during that time. And so, and now we had a reserve, if you will, a hefty fund balance that we were looking at. So the board has been making some larger allocations to support affordable housing.
I don't think it's accumulating that fast now, Steve, just because the market, with the
They're,
rate environment and stuff has slowed down.
Yeah.
So I understand it would be a projection, but the way things stand in the market right now, are you accumulating $500,000 a year?
You know, it does vary every year, those
Certainly.
amounts change. If you add the Campus Towers and the Sunrise Village contributions we made, That combined was another 1.5 million. So we're talking about $4.2 million, and that was in our reserves. So it had built up. We started collecting those dollars in 2013. It was one of the last actions of the county commission before I joined to establish the funding mechanism with the document recording fees. But they had been collecting the document recording fees since I think around 2008 or 2009 when the state passed those laws. Originally at most of $100 per document deed being recorded. That's now, the state has increased that to most of $300. So it's accumulated quite a bit. But when interest rates went up, we also saw a decline in the number of, in the turnover of housing. So
Sure. So now we're 14, 15 years down the road collecting those funds. So after that $8 million is spent, how much you got left?
what are we expecting to end up with? A reserve of around,
We're estimating to end 2024, given all of our allocations, at a little over 400,000.
So your ability to put anything else into affordable housing is pretty much gone till some future date, with unknown amount of funds coming back in. Okay. That's what I was wondering.
at the risk of riling people up, in those early years, much of that money went to fund Love Overwhelming and their operations. And we know how that turned out, and we have since defunded the county's contribution to Love Overwhelming. They're still in operation, and they have some apartments that they oversee, and they get grants still, but not from Calhoun County that I'm aware of. Arne and I worked on that over the years to make sure that they didn't get any more funding.
That was a noble cause when it started out also. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Pleasure of the board, and I'll take these independently, I think.
You want to take them independently?
Yes.
Okay. I also wanted to say, among the other kinds of services that we have supported in addressing affordable housing issues, we have actually arranged support for a mediation service, a community mediation service to help tenants and landlords resolve problems. Because ultimately, if those conflicts don't get resolved, people get evicted eventually. I mean, that's always the challenge. So again, there's no one size fits all. And so we're trying to make sure that we try a number of different approaches, because people are different and they approach things very, very much differently. Well, Mr. Chairman, I will be glad to make the motion for item number 11. That is to approve the contract with Community House on Broadway for the construction of a youth shelter facility. A cost reimbursement program not to exceed $2 million funded through the document recording fees for housing and homelessness programs.
Have a motion to approve item 11. Any further comments, questions? Not seeing any. I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, item 12. This is the same group that worked the whole program for Sunrise Village is doing this, right? Right, Gina? I mean, different sponsor agency. Hoswell was the one on Sunrise, CAP is the one on this, but the same group behind working all the funding angles, because it's much more than a $700,000 project.
Yes, I think Community Frameworks, it's a partnership between Community Frameworks, the City of Kelso, and Lower Columbia CAP.
So Community Frameworks is sort of like the general contractor for the program and making all the applications to federal and state agencies to come up with the money.
Yes.
And they made presentations to us.
Mhm.
And I think Kelso City Council as well. The city of Kelso is pretty much involved.
Mhm.
That West Kelso site's going to include most likely the public library as well as a community facility. So
Yep, it's a big project. This particular funding is specific to just the housing units. So it won't be able to be utilized for whatever they, end up doing on the bottom, community activity wise, just for the housing units.
Yeah. And this is another one where I don't want it to morph, because when they first talked about it, they wanted to have some units available for people getting out of jail and having housing for them, and mixing people that have done the wrong thing and spent some time in jail with other seniors didn't really sit well with myself or Kelso. And so they changed that model. And I mean,
There
Yeah,
are other
no crab
programs
box.
to help people transitioning out of
Yeah.
prison. But it's focused on helping people transitioning out of prison. So, Oxford House being probably one of the more
Mhm.
better known programs. So it's not like we're not trying to help those who transition out, but mixing them with, more vulnerable populations didn't make sense. So
Questions on this?
you want me to? Okay.
No, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Go ahead, Ron.
I just want to make a clarification. We use the term affordable housing very generically. It's really commingled with subsidized housing.
Yeah.
For instance, like Sunrise, the Longview Housing Authority, $16 million for 24 units, over $400,000 a unit. That only gets the place built. That does not house the tenants in there. And many of those will be more subsidized housing. So that's, I appreciate the discussion with CAP, but again, as Arn says, the end of the term is when we really do get people that are self-sustaining and community involved, et cetera, and that's after a whole lot of subsidy also.
Yeah, good point. Any other
Mi-
question? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve a contract with Lower Columbia CAP for the construction of affordable housing units in West Kelso.
Okay,
The costs of reimbursement will not exceed $695,000 funded through document recording fees for housing and homelessness programs.
so we have a motion to approve item 12. Last chance for questions. Not seeing any hands. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Thank you. That concludes our items for today. We have tomorrow, Wednesday at 2:30, we have a workshop. We'll have rural public facilities. If you have any interest in that, we'll be going over that. The following Wednesday, we actually have rural public facilities presentations. I think we had 5 projects come in, and we'll be reviewing those. So on April the 3rd, you may want to see those projects being presented, and that'll be Wednesday at 2:30. We have public comment for a couple minutes till 10 if we have it.
So, Mr. Chairman, were one of those two for the Fairground Development Program, Public Facilities District report? I know the projects were the Rural Economic Development Fund.
Projects were rural.
Right.
Yeah,
So
did
thought
I
get
mix
that
those
one.
up?
Well, no, I don't know if the agenda is wrong. It seems like it's the same
Well,
topic.
Yeah, I think Kathy's gonna go over how that works and the funding
Okay.
and stuff like
All right.
that, the nuts and bolts, and then we actually have the projects coming in the next week.
Okay, thanks.
That was my understanding of it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear, did motion item number 11 pass or fail?
It passed.
Thank you.
2-1.
I just have a comment for your Board of Health thing on this new business fentanyl discussion. I would hope that one of you would ask whoever the presenter is here if they got the idea behind what the president of Mexico said the other day. Mexico doesn't have a fentanyl problem, but we do. There's maybe something this country needs to look in the mirror about You know, why do we have a fentanyl problem and they don't? And I'd be very secure in saying, I never even heard of fentanyl 10 years ago. I'm not sure I heard about it 5 years ago. So this is something new. And one of my thoughts on all these things, I thought fentanyl was a prescription drug. That goes along with the president of Mexico's thinking about if we got a problem, we need to look in the mirror. That's a huge problem. And if they don't have it, why don't they? And why do we have a problem? And part of the problem, I'll tell you about Cowlitz County, you know, seeing that Chairman Dahl didn't grow up in Cowlitz County, he grew up in Lewis County.
Yeah.
I know a lot of friends that came from Lewis County and Thurston County came to Cowlitz County on Friday, Saturday night because it was a lot wilder here than it even was in Olympia, which was a hell of a lot wilder than Centralia and Chehalis or Aberdeen. Longview was the epicenter of bad juvenile delinquents that didn't end up in jail, but there was a reason you could go from intersection to intersection with a whole line of beer bottles down the yellow line without any space for another one in between. And I think it's part of what society allows. I mean, if that was happening 50 years ago, I guess there's no beer bottles on Commerce anymore on Friday and Saturday night. So what the heck else is going on to replace it? Because the idea of going out on the weekend and doing whatever you could get away with probably didn't go away. Just because we're not there anymore, it being the old people. That fentanyl thing, it's quite timely that it's sitting on here today. And what the president of Mexico said the other day, they don't have a problem. We have a problem. And we need to address that as to how we're going to cure it. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good. The points made were good. I posted on Facebook a Mises it's posted on Facebook. There's a very small article that addresses the fentanyl issue, and it's pretty decent argument. It doesn't go into take a look in the mirror, but you're absolutely spot on that. We're in a society now where I'm not responsible. It's all your faults. And we're doing that all the way around. In this case, we reach out internationally and say, it's your fault. That's not productive. Yep. Well, if you spun me up a little bit on that, you've heard me say that the average house built in like 1975, average new house was 1,000 fewer square feet than the new house being built in 2010, I think was the number that I recall. Our appetite for housing is like, you know, it better have a granite countertop, it better have this, it better have that. People can get by with a lot less than they think. And imagine having a roommate or a housemate. What a concept.
I could use one of those, especially if they cleaned. Any other comments? Seeing none, we will adjourn this meeting. Board of Health will start up in a minute. Thank you.